So now let's talk about using pictures for tracing 2D drawings. Now in SolidWorks, you can import pictures and then you can use it as a reference to trace 2D geometries. Let me show you how that works. And for that, we'll start with a plane. So I'll go to Sketch and I'll select top plane. Now that we have our plane selected, let's go to Tools, Sketch Tools, and here we have a sketch picture. Now using this, we can import an image. So here I will import this SourceCAD logo and I'll click open. All right, here we are. So we've got the picture added. Now we can resize this picture, and that's the first thing you should do here. So currently this size is completely random. We don't know the length or width of this image. In this case, I'll move this scale slider and I'll just resize it properly. So I'll just move it right here, and then I'm just going to move this arrow up to this point. All right, now this length should be equal to 100 units. So I'll just type 100 here. I'll click OK, and there we are. Okay, now the image is resized. Double click your middle mouse wheel to bring it in the drawing area, and here we are. Now this length is 100 unit and everything else has changed proportionally. So all the size, height, and everything has changed proportionally. Now you can also see these properties here. So you can see the x-axis length, the y-axis, and the angle. If it is inclined to any angle, you can just see that, or you can also add an angle here to change these values. Also, the height and width of this image is approximately 100. As you can see, we've added these values, so it will show up here. Now, this is the scale tool. If you don't want it here in the image, you can uncheck it and the scale tool won't show up. Also, you can flip the direction of this image. So if I click it, it will flip it horizontally. You can see this thing has flipped. You can also flip it vertically using this option. Now this image is a JPEG image with no background transparency, but if you are importing a PNG image with background transparency, you can activate this button and that's going to just show you just the image with background transparency. Of course, we don't have this image with any kind of transparency, so it looks exactly the same even after changing these options. So I'll change it back to none. All right. Now that we have our image, just click OK, and we can now start tracing right on top of this. To do that, you can go to this sketch tool and you can start making sketches. For example, we have the first circle, and maybe using the same center, we can make the second circle, and then we can just use line tool to create all the other remaining geometries, kind of like this. So in this way, you can just trace right on top of this. So I'll just select it all, I'll delete it. Now this is the manual way of tracing right on top of your sketches, but you can also do it automatically. Now there is a tool in SolidWorks which will let you automatically create sketches using these images. But the condition is, well, your image should have really high contrast. As you can see, I have this black and white image with really high contrast between the background and the actual image. And this is the kind of image that you should use for this example. Now the first requirement is the tool. So we'll go to Tools and activate the add-in required for this. So Tools, Add-ins, and we just need to activate Auto Trace add-in. Now this is the add-in which will let you trace these images automatically. By default, it is deactivated, so just make sure this checkbox is selected like this. With that selected, click OK, and now we are ready to auto trace this image. So now we have the image. Double click, and once again we are back into this sketch picture option, but with auto trace active, you'll also get these two arrows. So using this arrow, we can move to the next panel, and here we have everything which is required for automatically tracing this image. Let's see what options we have here. So the first option is selection tool. You can use this to just select your image. So I'll go to the first one, which is rectangular selection. Just make a rectangular box kind of like this, and everything inside this will be selected. With that selected, click on begin trace, and look at this. It will automatically trace the geometry. Of course, this is not a perfect kind of tool, so it will automatically skip all of these geometries which are inside this. We will take care of that in a moment, but that's the rectangular selection. Then we have a freehand selection, and using this, you can create a freehand kind of like this. And again, if you click begin trace, it will trace everything inside that. Then we have a polygonal one. So you can just create a polygon. For example, if you want to create a polygon that includes only this part of the drawing, and here we are, you just want to trace it, select a polygon, click on begin trace, and there we are. It will trace it. Now, this tracing is really very bad and it did not trace all of these geometries perfectly, but we can fix it. And you can fix it using these adjustment options. So you can just adjust it and it will trace it properly. We'll get to that. But first, let's now go to the last option of making selection, and that's this eyedropper tool. So I'll select this eyedropper tool. Now select a high contrast area like this and click on begin trace. And there we are. Now it will automatically trace the boundaries right there. So it will trace the internal as well as the external boundaries. And once again, as you can see, it's not that perfect. Here we have this kind of sharp edge. You can again fix it using these adjustment options. So let's just do that. Let's fix this thing using adjustment options. So here we have image brightness. Let's increase it a bit and see if it is going to fix. So that doesn't seem to be working. Now I'll add a little bit of contrast here. So adding contrast is just completely messing up this entire sketch. So I'll just decrease its value. Again, it doesn't seem to be working. So a little bit of tolerance. Again, doesn't seem to be working. So I'll just move it all the way back, and nope, it has not that kind of effect which we are expecting. So I'll just move it to a sweet spot, maybe here. All right, and finally the tolerance. So let's just decrease the tolerance and see what's gonna happen. But again, that doesn't seem to be working perfectly, so I'll just leave it here. All right, that's okay. Now with these changes, you can click apply, and we have the first sketch. Now this sketch is a simple spline and you can modify it even after creating it. So I'll just click OK. So I'll now select this spline and just go to edit sketch. All right, and then right click on this spline and we have all the spline related tools. So here we will convert it to a simple spline. So I'll select it, this option, convert to a spline, and now we have all of these control handles which we can now use to just modify it even further. So let's just do that. So right here, I'll just move it slightly inside. Here we are, and we can just move it further here. And this one too. So again, in a similar way, we can just modify this spline too. So again, right click and select convert to spline, and we can just move all of these control handles slightly to just fix its shape again. So here we are. Now this is much better. So this is how you can just create it. Once you're satisfied, you can exit out of this sketch. All right, and here we have the first sketch. Now, if you want to trace more of these geometries, then you can do that as well. All you need to do is just repeat the same process. So I'll double click this image, and once again, we have these arrows. So just click on next, and now I'll trace the remaining geometries. And to do that, I'll just select this polygonal area. And now the second tracing will happen right here. So now I'll make a big area here, kind of like this. Again, I'll select begin trace. So everything is selected and it looks perfect. So no changes are required here. So I'll click apply. So we have got a new sketch. If you want to now hide this image, you can do that as well. So that image is right here. So you can also hide this image if you don't want it. So just select suppress, and here we are. So we only have the sketch now. And that's how you can trace right on top of images in SolidWorks.